Oh, well, thanks very much, Liam. We're very privileged today to have Mats join us. He's our first international speaker, so thank you, Mats. And I've known Mats for more or less now a decade, and I was fortunate enough when I was a head teacher for Mats to come and visit my school, and we had a lot in common talking about education and more or less how to develop education and our thoughts. So with that, Mats, I welcome your views on the idea of monitoring and how more or less you've been using your system across Sweden, Iceland and Finland. So it gives a new perspective on education. So with that, Mats, if you'd like to share your screen for your PowerPoint, over to you then. Thank you very much.
I will. Thank you. Thank you, Andy. Yes, it's been a few years since we first met at your school, Goldsmith, in outside of Birmingham. So just to check here, can you see my screen and my slides now?
Yeah.
Excellent. My name is Mats Rosenkvist, and I'm talking today to you from Sweden. I have the ambition here to give you hopefully some new insights about how to help teachers improve their teaching based on evidence. This is both based on evidence, and what I will show you is an evidence-based method how to do it. I will, through Liam and Andy, I will make sure that you can get these slides if you want to, and I know also that this presentation will be recorded as Liam told you about. Okay, so what I will speak about is a research report that was published in June 2024. And it's about 700 lessons, 500 teachers and 30 schools in Sweden, 30 primary schools. This was published in June in 2024, and it has since been downloaded 44,000 times, which is very unusual for Sweden. Sweden is a country with a population of close to 11 million inhabitants, so it's quite a small country. And this means that quite a few people in the educational sector have been downloading and even read this publication, because we have had many questions since. And who are we? Well, I have been working, like Andy said, with education for quite some years. I have been not working in schools, but with schools, helping them and training head teachers primarily in quality assurance in different ways. And in this case, I've teamed up with some other experts and also with two professors at the University of Linköping in Sweden. And the reason that they were inspired to participate in a cooperation was that no one has gathered so much data about what teachers do in Swedish classrooms since the 70s. We have also, or I have specifically, and we have also been in contact over the years with someone who is well known in England, a man who was given a knighthood by Prince Charles because of his work with helping London schools to improve from being the poorest performing schools in England to be the best performing schools in a project called the London Challenge. So he's a bit of an advisor for us. So this report is about a method that looks like this, and I will shortly describe it more in detail. And this method helps teachers, all teachers, not some teachers, but all teachers to improve their teaching based on skillful evidence-based teaching. All teachers means that even the teachers that already are skillful, they improve their teaching as well. So firstly, the overall findings in this report are the following. Looking at all these lessons, we could see that there were striking deficiencies in teaching in many classrooms across all schools. In Sweden, there's been the understanding that there are differences between between schools. But when it comes to general didactics, the picture here is that there are things to improve in many classrooms in every school. And the overall other thing that was striking here was that teaching overall was to very little content replicating what is known to be successful and evidence-based skillful. And then, as I said, as an introduction here, a method resulted in that all teachers improved their teaching. What is also very positive here is that this method requires few resources. It takes little time. It's basically more about working systematically than about how much time you apply to this. So we're talking about per term, an hour and a half per teacher, and then 3 hours in a workshop together with all teachers and the school management. This is, of course, when you get going. Initially, you need to prepare and train a bit to get going. But that's basically what is needed per term systematically over time after that. The most positive thing is that teachers, they think that this method is both positive and that is because it's understood to be or seen as being very concrete. And very important thing about this is that it is about trying to get away from the feeling for the teachers that I'm being assessed to putting teachers in a situation and in a context that they feel is meaningful for their own improvement, both individually and collectively. So we have called it or named it to go from assessment anxiety to the joy of development. And here's just one quote from this report. We have a whole chapter where we have in themes described how teachers react to this method. So that was basically an introduction. Any comments or questions or things that maybe that you, Andy, think that I need to already clarify?
Yes, Max, I was just interested, when you said you did your study of deficiencies, was there anything particular that came out as deficient, or was it varied depending on the context of the school?
No, very specifically. I will now go into this, what we call STIP.
Oh, okay.
It's about 10 dimensions.
Yeah.
And I can give you examples. In 60% of the lessons, there were no learning objectives. There were only objectives about what to do during the lesson.
Okay.
In 60% of the lessons, the leadership was not oriented towards inspiration and motivation for learning, but instead the overall leadership was towards control, the more what we call, what is the word for that? Well, the more control-oriented leadership. And that normally makes the classroom into a place where you understand that there is a room for learning, but actual learning does not always take place because it's sometimes boring.
Okay.
And well, I could give you a number of examples and it'll be more clarified when I move forward.
No, that would be great. Thank you very much, Mats.
So I will now talk about first what we observed, what we were looking for, and then I will describe the method, and you will be sent also 4 success factors afterwards in the presentation that I hand over to Liam and Andy. And again, you can stop anytime, or you can put your questions into the chat. You're more than welcome to interrupt for me to clarify or etc.
Hi, sorry, Mats. Just before we get started on the next section, I've got a question here from Paula asking, is the report available to download in English? It will be interesting to see how this would fit into an international schools context.
To give you the full truth there, we decided to not write this report in English because research reports in Sweden in English are not normally read as much as they should have been. So we wrote it in Swedish. We have a summary in English, but the full report is not available in English. I'm sorry. I will pass on the summary.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mats.
Okay, so skillful teaching in practice is something that we have created over a period of, well, we started in 2016. And it is originally in Swedish. It's now, since this term, it's also used in Finland, in the municipality of Åbo, Turku, and that is in the Swedish-speaking part of Finland. But it's also now translated to Icelandic, and we've been invited to present this at a couple of international research conferences. So what we do is that we offer that, and we also offer training around this and tutoring primarily for head teachers and key staff, how to drive this method. And we have also created a system together with SchooliP. Basically, BravoLesson is a Swedish version of SchooliP, specifically oriented towards improving the quality of teaching. So that's what we do. And if we go into skillful teaching in practice, so what is it? Well, in 2016, my partners started out, and they started digging into research. One is Bernd Friberg, who has been a head teacher for many years, for more than 20 years, and he's the one that I met in Swedish education over 30 years, who have read absolutely most research. He basically eats books, and he reads all books 3 times. The first time he reads the book, second time he writes questions to the book, and the third time he answers the questions and writes a summary. And Urban used to be in charge of the leadership program for the Swedish Defense Ministry. So that's the background. He's since, for the past 25 years, he's also been working with education. So what they did was that they sat down and they did not look for research about what skillful or successful teachers are, but more what they do, what they actually do in the classroom. So they then picked out these 10 dimensions, since they've been recurring over time in many countries and among many researchers. And their conclusion is that these are dimensions that lead to a learning environment in the classroom, to motivation, and to learning. And since 2016, we have then carried out a total of 4,000 systematic lesson observations, and then a discussion with the teacher after each lesson. We launched this in 2022, and through the research report and the work together with the professors at the University of Linköping, it's been validated. It actually measures what it intends to measure, the quality of teaching. So here we can see, for the first dimension, all the references that have concluded the same thing. And what I pointed out here is one example of research. But when many researchers, through referencing each other and through cooperation and meeting at conferences, etc., when they come to the same conclusion, research turns into be science. So this observation form happens to have a very broad and deep research background. And what they have all concluded here together, or have come to the same conclusion about, is this. So this is the first dimension, objectives as a starting point for learning. Hang on, what's going on? Sorry about this. I'll do it like this. Sometimes you just have to
Oh no, while you're doing
realize
this,
that.
yeah, while you're doing this, Mats, I wonder if any of the colleagues that have joined us have got any questions they want to say while you're just doing this.
Anyway, apologies for this. What these researchers have come to a conclusion about is that this is successful. So when it comes to objectives as a starting point for learning, they've concluded that when the teachers and the students have the same understanding of what the lesson's objectives are, that is very successful. Meaning that they have the same understanding of what should be learned during the lesson. And to the right, we have, in the right column here, we have described what you can see that the teachers do. And what they do is that they present learning objectives, and they also ask questions throughout the lesson to make sure that the pupils, the students, have understood what should be learned. So that they are sure that the pupils have understood what should be learned. That's very successful. So here we can see and read what teachers do regarding that. And on this level, the teacher is less conscious about this and also less skillful. And then the bottom two development steps, that's when the teaching is not very skillful. And it is important that you also can explain and show what is less skillful, because otherwise the not skillful teaching does not exist. You have to have words for it. So the bottom two development steps helps teachers and key staff to discuss teaching and improve what is actually really skillful. So this is the structure of these growth rubrics for the 10 dimensions. So there's a growth rubric for every of the 10 dimensions. So we take dimension number 5, which is about using response for learning. When learning is actually going on, using response then. These references or these researchers have concluded that this is what is very successful. That is to give meaningful response, and then you need to discuss what is meaningful response, but it's also to train the students to give feedback to each other, which is basically also one of Hattie's key, if you remember Hattie's visible learning, one of the key findings that he had already then, 15 years ago. So this was a description of what this material is. And to move on, I will now show data from the observations. And just to explain how this data comes about, this is by using SchooliP or the equivalent BravoLesson. You can have this observation form in the system, and then you create data through these matrices, and that will give input to the graphs that I will show shortly. So included in this material is also many examples for each dimension of what the researchers have written and concluded about why this is successful teaching. So that was a quick insight to what this observation form and what this material is about. Any questions or comments from you?
I'm just interested because obviously I've been a background of head teacher and doing monitoring. It seems that, you know, obviously it's the way in which I'm now working with schools, developing more of a coaching way in which you're doing. So you're creating more of a bottom-up approach. Is that more or less what you're doing, Mats, where the members are, I'm not saying they're welcoming the idea of someone coming to monitor a lesson to start off with, because that's a culture shift. But eventually it seems, based upon the quote you've just said, that members of staff are embracing it because they're going on a skills journey. It's not being judgmental. They're not saying, and I suppose it's having the mentality of just saying everybody's a learner. So I'm just interested about the base, because obviously you did some research to find out the standards of education in Sweden needed to improve. Therefore, based upon research, you came up with a matrix, and the results are impacting on teachers. And the best thing about it, it seems to be, based upon what you've said, is that staff are embracing that approach because they're seeing an improvement. And if they're seeing an improvement, I suppose they're actually happier in the classroom and being more successful. Is that more or less right, Matt?
Yes, we're now moving forward with new research where we are following 6 schools in a small local authority over 3 years. And one of the dimensions that we're following both before, during, and after is the teachers' feeling about workload, the feelings about the joy of working, and also what is called, I think, self-efficacy in English. Do you know what that means? What that is, Andy?
No, it might be a slightly different terminology. Is that how they're feeling themselves? Is that
Yeah, about how strong they feel as being teachers, if they feel professional. So that's what we're going to track over 3 years. But we have, if you read the report and read the chapter about how teachers have reacted, it is about that they feel that this is a meaningful context. This is so concrete that it's about their own everyday lesson. And if you're given the opportunity to discuss that and get feedback on that in a way that is less of an assessment, then they all, even if some during along the way are skeptical, we basically win all teachers over to the side where they feel that they're in a meaningful context. Okay. And do you think that was a reflection to your question?
Yes, and I'm also thinking, is it right that in Sweden you don't have like school inspections? Do you have like inspections like we have Ofsted inspections in the UK? Do you have those in Sweden?
We have school inspections, yes, but inspections in the classroom, they're basically the school inspection authority comes to a school and they basically look at 3 lessons. So Swedish teachers are not used to be observed every year from the perspective that they should be assessed. There is no assessment of teachers going on. So the school culture in Sweden has been that for a long period of time, lesson observations have not been part of the DNA of Swedish school culture. So there are many feelings, or amongst teachers, there are lots of feelings about having someone visiting your classroom.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much, Mats.
So it is, I would say that this is a top-down, bottom-up initiative. It's something that we decide on as school managers, but it's carried out to create a feeling that it's bottom-up. Does that make sense? Yeah. So about the method.
Sorry, Mats, just got another question here for you from Paula again, asking how much autonomy do Swedish teachers have over what they teach and when? Is there lots of freedom to adapt content to be more engaging?
Yes, Swedish teachers have a very big room to make their own decisions. We have a national curriculum that points out overall what content that should be covered, but not in detail. and then they have the curriculum points out what should be learned. So underneath that, they can carry out teaching the way that they want to. Was that an answer to the question, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. That I'll let Paula speak for herself. Does that answer your question, Paula? Yeah, she's given us a thumbs up.
Okay. So about the
Mats.
method, yeah. This is not complicated. It's really no rocket science. It's not new. There's nothing new about having an introduction and being transparent and trying to inspire. But everyone who has been on this route know that even if you try to inspire, that's not always that gets across to all in the audience. There's nothing new about lesson observations, but in Sweden, it's absolutely new that you do it systematically and that you collect data from each observation. Both to be able to have an individual reflection, and there's nothing new with having a coaching session or a reflection session after the lesson together with the teacher. There's nothing new about that. But what is new is that the observation form is so concrete that teachers express that this is more positive and more concrete than they have experienced before. What is new is that the process does not stop here or end here. It continues. So when a whole cycle of observations, when all teachers have been observed and had an individual reflection, you have a collective reflection. And you do that around data that shows the overall teaching of the school, not the individual, but the overall teaching quality for the dimensions observed. And in the report, we here describe that this is where the ownership of the process basically starts to move over to the teachers. The discussions, they change and they become more frequent. So at the coffee machine, there is more teaching discussed than before. And the change is that teachers start to talk about not only my teaching, but our teaching. And then this process starts all over again. So a new cycle of observations. And the report also shows that it's not about that this has to go on and on many, many times each academic year. It's more important to have it systematically once per term than to put in hours and hours. But of course, we have customers who do this 2 times per academic year, 3 times per academic year, and we also have heard someone carrying it out 4 times. But a systematic approach to this is more important than the exact number of hours. So this is about moving from a collaborative learning focus to a collective learning focus. There's nothing wrong with the collaborative learning approach, but the collective dimension is that when you take that one step further to really focus on drawing conclusions that we all then make into common patterns of action in the classrooms, we decide, let's do this, all of us. Because that's going to have a greater impact not only on a few students, but all students. So a couple of examples. This is a municipality in southern Sweden, a municipality or local authority with 6 schools. And last year, between August and October, all the teachers at the 6 schools were observed. And that was the starting point. So this is an image showing the quality for the 10 different dimensions. And as you can well understand, I think, is that green is more skillful and than gray and red. So these colors, they mean different things for each dimension according to the matrices I showed you earlier on. And this is exactly the same pattern that we saw in the research report. Dimension number 1, which is about objectives for learning, and dimension number 4, which is about making learning visible, and dimension number 8, which is giving support to students with different needs, and also number 10, which is about cooperative learning. These were the dimensions that most teachers had need to improve. After 2 months, the teachers were observed again, and then teaching looked like this, which is exactly the same pattern as in the report, that shortly there is quite a lot of improvement being made. At this stage, there are still some teachers in these schools that are a bit skeptical about this method, but over time, things happen. So if we take a single school, this is what the teaching looked at for this school after 4 cycles, after 4 terms, with focus on the first 5 dimensions, which are about the learning process. And after 6 terms, it looked like this. And so this was a year ago in October, November 2024. And then the teacher said, by golly, next term, we're going to all be green. And that was the outcome. And here's the head teacher, Jessica Miller, who has been running this systematic work since the spring of 2022. And here we're also now seeing examples of the student outcome coming along, being improved over time. So they reached their best student outcome data or results historically at this school, and without you knowing, but these figures also show quite a high outcome altogether. And they started working with improving teaching in 2017, really. No, sorry, 2019. So what is it that really happens here? What really happens is that when the whole group of teachers that the school together with the school management meet around these data, they can have discussions like this. What do we need to do in the classroom to improve from yellow to green? So collective discussions about this, and then individual discussions lead to new insights that then get embedded into the teacher's teaching. So to compare that with research, I don't know if you've seen this book, but from you should say source, Katz and Duck, 2 American researchers, and this book was written in 2013. Maybe you've seen this, but this is the super summary of this book. They first define what is professional learning or professional practice. That is lasting improvements in ways of thinking and doing in the classroom. Over time, lasting improvements in ways of thinking and doing in the classroom. And they conclude that that is a prerequisite to reaching higher student results. If we compare to Einstein, who has said that we should not expect any other results if we continue doing what we've done before. This is the same conclusion. And to make that happen, Katzenbeck concludes, then we have to challenge and change teachers' beliefs and perceptions. Because we all have beliefs and perceptions where we filter through information that comes to us. So we need to challenge that to get to new insights. And what really makes this challenge come about is both the individual reflection and the individual learning, but it is the data that helps a group and an individual to challenge their own beliefs and understandings. So any comments or questions?
So based upon what you've just said then, Mats, because as you know me, I'm a very visual person. What you're doing is you're creating this journey of improvement for the teacher. So more or less, you've got your rubric, which is based upon research, which I suppose is the ingredients of quality teaching. The member of staff knows what those ingredients are, so there's no hidden agenda. They come in there, they're not graded as in traditional grading, as in, unfortunately, in UK, people have a traditional way of grading linked to Ofsted and inspections and said you are a successful teacher, you're useless, that type of thing. What they're saying is you're on I suppose a journey of skill level. Some things you're going to be better than others. So it's identifying those. They're given quality feedback, which seems it's the feedback that's really important. They're given the quality of feedback to then help them improve. That feedback then will probably be then assessed in the next time someone comes in to check that journey of improvement. And not only are you able to collect data based upon the individual, you can then collect it based upon maybe a year group or a department or the whole school, or as in the case of the local authority, they can bring all the results together to then identify pockets. And I suppose one thing that you didn't mention, is it then that you're able to signpost good practice so colleagues are able to work together, and anyone that's particular, how would we say, very good and skillful in a particular area can be used to reinforce and help others? Is that more or less the cycle that's happening?
That's basically exactly the summary, the cycle. So that's a very good summary. And it is to point out, yes, it's not about assessing, and there's no annual conclusion that you've been improving on this and this. Of course, we discuss it, but it's not for the purpose of concluding that you have improved. The purpose is to discuss continuously how to improve. Does that make any sense? I mean, there's no one coming in from an authority, and there is no head teacher saying that this is something we have to, but it's a process where everyone is involved in getting what we say better and better. Yeah. If you say that teaching needs to be better, then there is an understanding that it's not very good. But if you say that teaching is going to be better and better and better, it's more an ambition together, and that's the culture we're trying to create, and that we are experts in helping school leaders and key staff to create.
Yeah, which I think is, in our case, and hopefully I can speak for the colleagues that are attending this webinar, sometimes when we're based upon school inspections, we end up with a situation where we have to judge teaching, and therefore we grade lessons and we do this. Whereas now we're finding, Liam and myself working with schools a lot more using SchooliP, which you mentioned previously, is we're creating more of professional reviews and more to do with the coaching of the system, about coaching people to be better rather than feeling they're being done to. And I think that's what we're doing. And I think the idea of research and backing it up. And as you said, you're on a journey where one thing you did mention was leaders have to, it's the importance of the implementation and selling it to their colleagues, first of all, to break that barrier that I'm not going to go along to more or less do this to get rid of you. We're in it together and we're working together. And it's interesting what you said about you're getting a lot of feedback off colleagues. You're getting a lot of feedback off teachers about how it's helping them and making them feel better. And I'm also interested in that extra bit of research that you're doing, which obviously ties in with what's happening in the UK about well-being, because it all ties together. So, you know, thank you very much. But I've said enough there, so hopefully someone else will say something as well.
Yeah, we'll give people a few minutes in the chat in case they want to add on any more notes. And obviously, Matt spoke a lot there about how all of this is managed in the BravoLesson platform and within SchooliP as well. So I thought I might just take a moment to show you something in action inside SchooliP and how you can use one of our tools to help in this process. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen and hopefully everyone's able to see this. But here we've got the reporting area for monitoring forms in the SchooliP platform, where you can gain an oversight and a breakdown of different gradings, different performance criteria, all feeding from a number of different forms that you might have set up in your system. Coming down a bit more, you've got all of those individual.
Liam, can I ask you one
Yes,
thing? Can you scroll up again?
Absolutely.
And change the graph form from these donuts to, can you change those so you can see the resemblance with what I showed? So that what you saw that I showed in my presentation is exactly this. So you can just decide whichever way to visualize the data.
Absolutely.
Sorry about that, Liam. Yeah.
That's okay. No, not a problem at all. So as we've just shown there is a few ways of determining and viewing this data. But the beauty with these platforms is being able to filter all of those searches down and to really get into the nitty gritty of all of those different questions and forms, getting nice averages from department or key stage or job type, coming on to individual forms and getting an even further breakdown by question. If I can get one of these to quickly load up, I'll be able to show you that. So if I was to go with this learning walk and get a nice question breakdown of, or maybe that one's not working, but we could go with a lesson observation form maybe. There we go. And you can get an even further breakdown on this screen rather than the overall stuff as well. So just to quickly tie in with what Matt's been talking about, and obviously it's lovely to have one of these systems alongside that journey to really help you keep a solid oversight of what's going on. So that's my bit there. And I can't see anyone else. Oh, sorry, Matt.
Well, you can add one thing that along with this data, of course, there's then an individual portfolio for each teacher.
Absolutely.
That
Absolutely.
The teacher and the school management shares together, but not with any other teacher.
Yeah, so I'll quickly touch on that as well then. So all of your staff members will have their own portfolio inside SchooliP. As Matt said, this is directly between the staff member and their line manager and any relevant collaborators that you might include in that process. But what happens here is you can talk back and forth with each other. Obviously, you've got that monitoring area where you can start these forms, sit down in the back of the classroom and observe what's going on, identify next steps and areas for improvement throughout that journey as well. But within these portfolios, it's directly relating to any targets that the teacher might have, any relevant standards that are involved in that process, any training that might come off the back of those monitoring forms as well. And as Matt said, this is a one-on-one process between staff member and line manager, and it just ties in together all of those other processes outside of that monitoring aspect to really bring an all-round approach to your staff development and school improvement.
Yeah, because as you've just said, Liam, with the UK, and obviously it's different than what you mentioned, Matt. You know, We've had things like appraisal, performance management, which was very much done too. But you can see that we're using language like professional review, professional portfolios, helping people with their careers. The whole point is this belongs to the member of staff, and they have the ability to download it and take it in their career. But it's all about creating that improvement journey. You've got your monitoring. You've got then, if you just click on for me, the areas for development, please. These are the next steps that people are given. And these then, next time you do any kind of monitoring, pre-populate the top. And it creates that improvement journey. And what you're looking for are those actions, those next steps for people to act on to show their improvement. And I think that's exactly the same as the process that you're adopting in Sweden. Everybody's on a journey of improvement. Everybody's learning. And with that, that's our way forward.
And also that has a lot in common with what they created in London, the London Schools Turnaround, where they, over X number of years, worked with the focus on the quality of teaching based on one observation form. So they, over time, had the same focus term after term. And just like you, Andy, asked about, what they really successfully did was also to make people or teachers share best practice. And they even trained teachers to share best practice with others, because sometimes when you're skillful in something, you're not always aware of exactly what you do. So they train teachers to share.
Yeah, but also we find that, well, Liam and myself find, and you probably find, Mats and the colleagues joining this webinar, as a teaching profession, we're not very good at, how we say, singing throughout, promoting what we've done. We're not very good at saying, well done. And sometimes it's a way of just showcasing and saying you are doing really well at this. And I think it is just, and as I said before, I'm a very visual learner. So the idea of visual graphs and achieving data, I find very powerful. So I don't know if anyone else. I don't know if anyone else has that.
I can't see any other questions popping up in the chat. So obviously I'll be reaching out following this the end of this session with the slides that Matt's been using, the recording as well, if you'd like to watch back and go through anything side by side. So if you've got any more questions, feel free to drop me a reply to my email, and I'll be happy to pass anything along. But I think for today, that will do for now. So thank you very much, Mats. Thanks for your input, Andy, with all of your brilliant questions as well. And thanks, Paula and Sue, for joining us. Thanks especially to Paula for jumping in the chat as well and coming along with some of your ideas. It's been lovely to see a bit of interaction in the chat. So thanks again for everyone, and we'll see you at the next one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.